Wisconsin Broadcasters Association Hall of Famer Bob Berry ruled Milwaukee's airwaves in the 60s and 70s. He spoke with countless musicians and celebrities over the years. Bob collected remarkable recordings of these encounters, which he's now sharing with the public. Here's Bob.
In the early morning hours of August 6, 1945, a B-29 bomber named Enola Gay dropped the world's first atomic bomb over the city of Hiroshima, Japan. The explosion immediately killed 80,000 people, and many more would die later from radiation exposure. This was the beginning of the end of World War II. On today's podcast, the pilot of that bomber, Colonel Paul Tibbets.
Today is the anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima, Japan. It was on this day, August 6, 1945, that the United States dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. And on the air with us right now is Paul Tibbets. He was the pilot of the plane that dropped that bomb. And Paul, I don't know if you saw this, but a Stanford University history professor claims that the United States government has withheld information that many American prisoners of war were killed in Hiroshima when the atomic bomb was dropped. Is there any truth to this?
Well, let me put it this way. The way you stated, I would disagree with the manner in which it is put by this person. It was suspected, let me put it that way. It was suspected, and I had knowledge of the fact that there may, and I use that word may very carefully, there may have been prisoners in the area of Hiroshima, but by the same token, intelligence says that they were moving them out. Now, a year ago, it came out in newspapers in Washington, D.C., New York City, etc., that, unfortunately, there were some Americans killed at that particular time.
Describe exactly what happened on August 6, 1945.
Well, Bob, you say describe. I know what you're talking about. You're talking about basically the flight as we came in,
yes,
released the bomb, and
right,
what we saw afterwards. Let me put it this way. Believe me, the flight on the way in was basically routine. It went exactly as we had planned it to go weeks before.
Well, you were the only one that knew exactly what you were doing, right?
I was the only one that had, let me put it this way, as close to total knowledge as you could come as to what was going on, what was the weapon that we were employing, yes.
Besides Harry Truman, of course.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there were other people.
Yeah.
I'm talking in my own organization of 1,400 people that we had that were being trained to do this type of thing. I didn't admit anything until actually we were in the air and I told my crew exactly what the weapon was. One of the men at that particular time said that's the way I had it figured, and I'm sure that he did. Now,
did any of them get upset when you told them?
No,
okay,
absolutely not. Look, we're looking at 1945, and we're looking at people that have been involved in a war for 4 years before that, and everybody was most anxious to bring a successful conclusion of that war, get it home. So there was no reaction to it, except that I think I could say rather safely that everybody looking at me and listening to what I told them, because I said it will end the war, they were probably thinking, well, I hope the old so-and-so is right, and because they wanted to get it over with.
Right.
We could see the city of Hiroshima as far as 70 miles away. So that gave us a lot of time to close in on it. In the meantime, we are quite busy with the last moment preparations, the last minute checking of that weapon to be sure that the batteries in it were charged and that the systems were all, it's kind of like one of these moonshots. You have to have all the systems go. And, of course, we had fewer systems, but everything had to be checked and rechecked on the way in. The bombing problem really was very little, due to the fact that we had this tremendous visibility. We saw the city quite distinctly in the minutes before the bomb was released. Now,
what did the bomb actually look like, Paul? Could you describe it?
Well, the bomb was, this particular one that I used on Hiroshima was a long tubular type shaped thing. It was about 36 to 37 inches in diameter. It had a kind of a rounded nose, and it had a tail on it to give it guidance ability. It was 16 feet and some inches long.
How many pounds?
Well, it weighed better than 9,000 pounds. It was, we always said 10,000, but it wouldn't tip the scales at quite 10. It was about 9.7.
Okay, you were saying how you turned around. Did you all have to wear dark glasses or anything?
Well, we were given dark glasses, same as a welder would wear. We did see, I saw distinctly, the brilliance of the flash. Even though the sun was shining, we got the flash bulb effect in the cockpit. The tail gunner with his welder's glasses on, he of course saw the whole thing, and he said it was quite brilliant. His eyes were not affected, didn't hurt anything because of the protection afforded by the lenses.
Were you able to see any of the aftermath? You know, how much of the city you had damaged or anything like that?
We were looking at the city, and by this time, where we had previously to the release of the bomb, we had seen a very distinct city sitting down there. You could see the little rivulets, and you couldn't see buildings as individual things, but you could see the inhabited area, the so-called rural area surrounding it, and you could see the military installations down on the water and all that sort of thing. None of this was visible now, because it had over the black boiling cloud that I always have described as a boiling barrel of tar. If you've ever, as old as I was, you'd have seen tar boiling, and there's always a pallor of steam, a steam cloud above it.
Must have been pretty hard to comprehend this, though. I don't know. My first thought would be, my God, what have we done? You know.
We're credited with having made expressions like that, but again, it wasn't in the context that you're saying. No, we were not prepared for what we saw. We had been briefed that it would be tremendous. We had been likened to 20,000 tons of TNT, but who had ever seen 20,000 tons explode? And the other side of that coin is that not having seen that, I had to use my imagination as to what 20,000 tons might look like. I've dropped 10 tons of bombs in Europe, and as I just multiplied that to come up with 20,000, but I fell far short in my mind. And when we looked at it, it was just an expression like you get caught by surprise. You say, my God, look at that thing.
If you'd like to learn more about Paul Tibbets and the events of August 6th, you can read Paul's books, Return of the Enola Gay, The Tibbets Story, and Flight of the Enola Gay.
Bob Berry. Thank you for listening to Bob Berry's Unearthed Interviews. Be sure to subscribe and rate our podcast on iTunes or wherever you find your podcasts. You can find all the episodes at WisconsinBroadcastingMuseum.org. Check out Bob Berry's book, Rock and Roll Radio Milwaukee. Book sale proceeds support Angels Kids Fund and Donate Life Wisconsin. The preceding program was made possible by a generous contribution from Terry Bond.